this was made with no parts at all, which means I had to use a WAV of the master track, which means I had no separates whatsoever, and I had as much to play with as anybody else would have done out there at that same time. There was no separate drums, there's no vocal parts, no MIDI, nothing. So I had to be really, really creative with this one, and I kind of decided to go down a direction which was quite out of step with everything I was playing at the time, but had a lot to do with my love of rave and listening to pirate radio back in the early 90s, in like 89, well, 1990, I suppose. It reminded me a lot of records by people like Meat Beat Manifesto and Renegade Soundwave, like kind of post-industrial rave music, which I still love now. And I suppose looking back, I'm very, very glad that I went down a different direction, because Daft Punk, were at that point, were on their way to dominating a lot of the electronic music spectrum with a particular sound, and I'm kind of thankful that I didn't subscribe to any of that in that sense. Not that I dislike it at all, it's just that I think there's some artists that you have the opportunity to do something very wildly different with, and this was one of them. And I'm glad that went and made this very unsettling, odd rave record, which I've actually played recently and probably sounded a lot more in step, 10, 12 years after I'd made it than when I had originally made it back in, I think it's 2005. It might have come out in 2006, but I think I made it in 2005. Can't remember, but I did check myself and make a second version, which was houseier, and I listened back to that recently and it was terrible, absolutely terrible. I'm glad I tried it, and I'm glad I didn't go for it, to be honest with you. It wasn't very good. A lot of this was made on a Cat Octave synth, which is a favourite, and one that I'm actually annoyed that I don't use enough. I think it's a really great synth. And the bass line and the weird flute noise was all made on that. The drums probably lifted off some rave track and thrown into recycle and chopped up, and new patterns were made from. And I remember all I could do really was just take the vocal part and try and isolate it as much as possible using a bit of trickery to put in a sampler and Logic, and then make it work from there, especially with the synth part as well. That was the keyboard line, I think that was made in the same process. But here you have it, Daft Punk The Brainwasher, as reworked by me a long time ago. This was probably one of my first, it's a very early remix of mine, so it would have been one of the first 5 or 6, I think. And I remember straight after this one was Waters of Nazareth by Justice, because I was talking to Pedro about both of those mixes. Obviously Pedro managed Daft Punk around here at this point as well, so I think I made a version of this with a bit of Space by The Prodigy sampled in there, a bit that goes, I'll take your brain to another dimension, which seemed fitting. So that obviously didn't come out, but I have it somewhere. I don't even know if I have the original session for this somewhere, because this was on a hard drive that disappeared, blew up, and I lost a load of work as well as a mix that I was doing for Bjork at the time. So this is long gone, this session. I don't know, I couldn't go back to it and do anything to it if I wanted to. Not that I would. I think once a mix is done, it's done. That's it.